Coaches across the country used the Coachpad this past season to be more efficient with their scout card prep on the weekends as well as when out on the practice field working with their scout teams. Whether you're a coach using a computer program to create cards or drawing them by hand, the Coachpad is for you. Never printing paper or stuffing a binder, clearly seeing scout cards outdoors in the bright sun, and using the coach pad on game days, syncing diagrams from the press box to the sideline were some of the features coaches enjoyed this season. This offseason, get your coach pad at thecoachpad.com to get your program ready for next season. Thecoachpad.com.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast. Today we have a friend of the channel who's been on here quite a few times. He is the head football coach at Ottawa University, Coach Nick Davis. Coach, how you doing?
Great, man. Excited to be back on again and talk some football.
Good. How's your Christmas? Everything well? Family's doing good?
Yeah, we went to the in-laws and had Christmas 3 nights in a row. And I think my wife was a little bit more tired than me of her family after 3 nights. So she lives in Cincinnati, so I made my way to Ohio for 3 nights of Christmas, and I'll have the Christmas with my family this coming weekend.
Yours lives in near you.
Charleston, Illinois.
Okay. I remember there was I obviously I see you every year. You have to travel, and every time we talk, it seems to be this time of year. So you're like, well, I'm traveling XYZ. So I mean, kind of since last time, obviously you guys made the playoffs again this year. As you've kind of been doing that rebuild. Kind of, I mean, what's kind of gone on since last time we talked and kind of the changes at Ottawa?
Yeah, we I think had a phenomenal season. It started off a little rough. The way our conference added a 12th team and what the NAIA schools have been doing in conferences is if you have 12 teams in your conference, you split into two 6-team divisions, and both divisions will have a automatic champion. So that was the in a berth to the playoffs. So that was what our conference got to a 12th team. We added Evangel out of Springfield, Missouri. And so we split our conference up. And what I liked in our conference is it'll always change between the two divisions. We don't have like an East and a West and a North and a South. We play everybody in the whole entire conference. So what they've done is they've looked at what your prior success is, and they try to put teams to make it balanced, so you don't end up with a SEC East before Georgia kind of got on the scene, and then Alabama dominating the West, and the West team in the SEC always making the run until Georgia kind of stepped up, right? And before that they had Florida, but because we're playing everyone, it doesn't matter geography wise. So but we ended up on in the Bissell division, and we started off the year playing a Southwestern, who's a top 10 team, and lost by 2 points, had a field goal blocked, and there's 2 extra points. And then the next week we played the buddy of the channel, Terry Harrison and the Friends Falcons, and we're pretty competitive against them, and they end up being ranked at the end of the year, and we lost to those guys. And then we went and played Bethel and Coach Stokes, and they were ranked 24th in the country, and we actually won on the last possession of the game, which was pretty cool. We hadn't beat a ranked team since 2014 here at Ottawa, so that was pretty cool. And then followed that up by laying an egg against McPherson, who ended up, I think, at one point during the season receiving votes. Really talented team out here, and we were 1-4. We go play Evangel the next week, who went 11-0 in our conference and was ranked 12th in the country, and had the ball inside the 10 to win it at the end of the game. And so we start off 1-4, and most people in the country wouldn't have been like, that's a playoff team. And then we went on a 5-game winning streak, ended up winning our division and qualified for the playoffs. Beat Kansas Wesleyan for the first time since 2014. They do a phenomenal job out there. They were the preseason favorites in our conference, and went to the playoffs for the first time since 2014. So pretty remarkable season, especially if you say, hey, we started off 1-4, but within those kind of losses, there was some evidence that we could be pretty talented. And we went on a tear in our division and won 4 straight and ended up winning our division and our conference championship.
I mean, it's kind of like listening to you talk about your division there. I mean, it's kind of an underrated conference because, I mean, not everybody is as fanatical as I am knowing NAIA football or just small schools, given what I do here. But like you listen to that, it is like powerhouse after powerhouse in the Western Plains, whatever you want to call where you're at. But like, I mean, you got you guys, you got Friends, you got Bethel, Kansas Wesleyan. That I mean, that's a list of schools that historically.
Yeah. Avila was a playoff team last year. I think I was doing the statistics, and of our 12 teams in our conference, in the last 10 years, I think 7 or 8 of them have won conference championships. So, we obviously as a conference want to do well in the national playoffs, and K-Dub had a run where they made it to the semifinal a few years ago. But I think top to bottom, it's pretty crazy that Ottawa went on to the playoffs for 6 straight years, and Coach Kessinger from 2009 and to 2014 and won 4 conference championships. But kind of after that run, Tabor and Sterling and Kansas Wesleyan has been really good. Friends is back. So Southwestern, Avila, I'm probably forgetting, and Bethel is or Bethany is the most down program, and they were the most dominant program in the 80s under Coach Kessinger's father, and went to NAIA championships and playoff runs. And I think Coach Kessinger lost like 7 games in 10 years or something at some point. But it's a super ultra competitive conference where there is a lot of talent and there's no weeks off. We lost our last week of the season after going on a 5-game winning streak to a 3-8 Tabor team who almost beat Evangel, who went 11-0 as well. So it was quite the year where you had to be ready every week.
Yeah, like it's very interesting, just the quality there. And I mean, we were talking beforehand, and we talked before, like historically, your program has, I mean, success has probably been more recent in terms of playoff appearances and that. What has it kind of done for your program to kind of make it back to the playoffs as you kind of go into the recruiting in the next year? Obviously, we'll get to some of that here in a minute, but what has that kind of done, that kind of resurgence done for your program?
Yeah, just a lot of alums reaching out, excited, where the team has came from. I always talk about it. When we were 1-4, I don't think there was any alum in the country that was like, these guys are going to go win a championship. So I think it was pretty cool that a lot of people had counted us out outside of the people within our building, and we were able to go on a nice run and win a championship. I'm going to go out and say that we were the worst team to ever qualify for the playoffs, which is pretty cool in some ways, right? Like as a coach, I wanted to have we could have been 9-2. We could have also this season been probably 2-9. We had a lot of 1-score games and in a super tough conference. So I think it was pretty cool to show what we accomplished with how poor the season started. Most teams would have folded, and our team, rose to the occasion, was able to do something really special, which I think is pretty cool.
Now, I mean, we talked a little bit about it, like personnel wise, there wasn't many changes from the prior year. I think a lot of it was probably more maturity than anything for you, but schematically, were there any or just culture or anything changes from the year before? I know you've had some turnover just because your staff keeps getting poached because you keep hiring good coaches. But was there any turnover, or was it really just the maturity and the kind of further develop into the system to help get you back to the playoffs?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. Like defensively, we hired Blake Mudd, who came in to run kind of the system that I established, and Dante Barty ran that system. But within the last 3 years, we've had the same terminology, and we've looked, different during certain aspects of the season, just because I'm going to let those guys do their jobs. Blake Mudd, I never one time got on the headset and said, "Hey, you need to run this." I taught him our system. I said, "Hey, whatever you want to do within this system, great. But I think that helps with the turnover, that if Blake got a phenomenal job at the end of this offseason, we'd bring a new guy in and the players wouldn't have to learn because they would already know essentially the terminology and how we play things. Offensively, we did kind of change to something that I'm really passionate about is trying to play fast. We went to more of the wide splits, which Tennessee was doing, and did some vertical choice stuff on our passing game and had a downhill run game. We thought we were going to be able to throw it around, and we ended up doing really good. We ran for the 5th most yards in the NAIA this year, and we thought we were going to be this tight zone team, and counter ended up being our play, and we were able to adjust and have some different things off of our counters. But what we found with the wider splits is when our running backs got in the open, we had a lot of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70-yard touchdown runs, where I think the wide splits did help us out there. We got to do a little bit better throwing the football. We got to improve there. But and then culture-wise, just the second year of the kids hearing the same things. And we talked off air, but you got to get lucky. We went for it on 4th down against Bethel inside our own 50 3 times in that game, which helped us win that game. And if we don't go beat a top 25 team, in the first 5 games, I don't know if we'll have the season, because that helped build our kids' confidence. And we always talk about believing in us. And I think our kids, when they saw that I made those decisions and I believed in us, that helped. Now it backfired 2 weeks later against McPherson, because I made some decisions where I'm like, hey, I believe in us. And it didn't work out. But I do think kind of what we're preaching to the kids, the coaches have to take action. So if I'm telling everybody we got to believe in us, and it's 4th and 1, and you're on the road against a top 25 team, and you're just going to punt the football every time, are your kids really going to buy into that? So I think a combination of culture, I think that definitely outweighs everything, because I think we were just as talented this season as what we were last year and won 2 football games. But I do think we got better offensively, and our defense made some strides at some situational football.
Okay. And then I mean, kind of how is you obviously have kind of lived, you've done the D3 world, you've done the NAIA world, and there's been a lot of changes the past couple of years recruiting wise in terms of NILs, which sort of affects you and sort of doesn't, obviously. Like, obviously you're not an NCAA school, NIL, all that stuff, but there's also a trickle down effect. And how has all the absurd changes with conference realignment, with NILs, affected you guys recruiting? Has it pushed stuff back? Made it has it made it easier? Because I try to explain to kids all the time that, to be honest, if you're not getting a D1 scholarship, NAIA might be the way to go, because they give you, to be honest, you probably get better packages than a lot of D2 schools. And there's some really good quality football. Like, how's things altered for you guys since all these changes the past couple of years?
I think it's definitely sped up the process that kids, I would say 90% of the kids know they're going Division 1 way earlier, just because of the early signing day in December. So I think that has helped at least identify to other recruits, hey, you're not going to be good enough to play at Akron or Florida State or Michigan or Kansas. But what I do think, here in the state of Kansas and Kansas State has done a phenomenal job of kids who have traditionally gone and played at the powerhouse Division II football teams are now walking on at Kansas and Kansas State. And if I don't know whether the NLI stuff has to do with that, I've heard that there are Division I programs that are essentially signing deals for walk-ons to pay for their scholarships and different things, so you can get more than 83 scholarships. Again, I don't know if that's happening at Kansas or Kansas State, but Todd Berry with the AFCA is telling us it's happened at the Division I level. And I think I'll get approached by a Division II kid like, hey, I'll come if I could get a $3,000 deal. And I'm like, that's just not going to happen, man. Like, what value do you have? if you could sell Pizza Time, our pizza place in Ottawa, Kansas, $6,000 a pizza a year, I bet they would hook you up with a deal. So I think a lot of these kids don't understand, like, outside of these big Division I programs that have all these boosters thrown around, what value do you have to the town, the community, the institution? Like, if you're going to sell some cars in Ottawa, Kansas, man, then I'm sure they would give you some money. But you know, all these kids want to be influencers, but what are they doing? So I think there are potential deals for the lower levels, but those kids need to go and hustle and grind and do things. I didn't get to where I am on Twitter by just sitting there hoping that people would follow me. So I think they got to get out there and get out of their comfort zone if they're trying to make some deals. Like, we got some guys that are doing small merchandise stuff, but it's a grind. Like, they need to post that stuff 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day, and they need to build a following. Just kind of like what I've done with, you know, our brand here at Ottawa.
Yeah, and like it just, and that's it's a whole different thing. And I was talking to a coach yesterday. And he was talking about how his son got an offer. Well, a friend of his son, well, his friend's son got an offer, and he told him to take it because things have changed, and didn't take it. Was going to try to leverage it, and that school just pulled it. Because I mean, you know, as I do, like you say that you guys certain amount of scholarships once they're full, you guys certain amount of positions you want. Like, and I don't think kids really kind of realize that. Like, I've talked to some D1 coaches, and they're like, the transfer portal's made it easier for them because they don't have to worry about the top 10 list. They just reach out to let's reach out to transfer portal. Are you interested? Yes or no? No. Okay, next kid. Like, it's not
No,
like,
and I think that is something that, like, all these high school coaches, whether it's good or bad, are all worked up about the transfer portal. And I've heard several college coaches saying the transfer portal kids are easy because they did the top 10 list. They did that. Like, they generally want to find out, like, playing time, what's my scholarship going to be like? What are the opportunities for me? So in some ways, I think the college coaches, not to say they're getting lazy, but they're finding proven products out on the field. Where I think it's a bad thing is if you're not playing at the Division II school, getting in the like, what are you doing? Like, and some of these kids are like, I'm trying to go to a higher level. Well, you just didn't play at a Division II school. I don't think Alabama wants you. And things like that. And my buddy at Shorter College, they've had 2 dudes the last 2 years that have gone to the SEC after going and dominating at Division II football. So there's some of that. But man, if you're not playing at a Division II school, or you're not playing at the worst Division III school in the country, like, what kind of scholarship do we have? So I think a lot of these kids are going in the portal and end up, you know, they may have been on full tuition at a Division II school. They may never see that same scholarship again, because at that point, if they don't have practice film from that Division II school, like, we're going off of what they did in high school and knowing the fact that, hey, you didn't play at this mid-level Division II school, you're probably not getting the same offer that I would have given you out of high school.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. Like, it's just it's a weird time that hopefully settles down at some point. Whether it will or won't, we will see, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, when I'm curious, because I honestly don't know recruiting wise. When is y'all? I mean, is your all signing day different than, or like, I know you guys have a lot of different rules, recruiting, player interaction, all that stuff at NAIA level. It's a whole different world.
Yeah, technically an NAIA athlete could sign at any point. I don't know the exact, like, time. Like, I could have had a signing day before the Division I early signing day the day before, and made all of our kids sign. And there's schools out there that they leverage that. You know, we don't. We want kids to, you know, make the right decision. Now, at the end of the day, like, if I have 5 great scholarships for offensive linemen, then I got to take the first 5 guys that want to take it. But some schools, you know, hey, you got to sign on this day and all that sort of stuff. That's not how we roll. I'd love it to be, you know, we kind of honor the NCAA signing day there in February as kind of our day, but a kid could sign NEI anytime. Now, there's nothing that binds him to that. you sign at Ottawa University, 2 weeks later, you could go sign at Findlay. And then you could decide Rose-Hulman came in and gave you a full academic scholarship because D3 rules, that doesn't bind that kid. So that kid could go to Rose-Hulman. So he could committed to me, he could have committed to a Division II school, and then ultimately determine, man, my education's the most important thing, and ended up there at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. So we ran into that quite a bit with some kids, like, because Division IIIs, sometimes they don't find out how much it costs until March. They committed to a scholarship program, whether it be an NAIA or Division II, and we could potentially get them in March. But it's a little bit about it, but there is no timeline, NAIA. And a lot of kids don't understand, like, the signing day just kind of starts the process there in February. It's not the end date.
Yeah, and to your point, like, unfortunately, the D3 thing's getting pushed back farther and farther, unfortunately. Like, I was talking to coach at our recruit night last month, earlier this month, whatever it is at this point, and he's talking about, like, the admissions office was telling him that it looks like the financial aid packages are going to be delayed because of something new rule. I don't know. Something.
Yeah, the FAFSA, you can't fill it out until 4 days from now, December 31st. So a lot of these kids are making decisions to go to a Division II or NAIA school or Division III school committed, and they have no idea what the money is going to be like. No idea. Unless they have had, if this is one of their younger kids, if this is the first kid in college for a family, no clue what their award's going to be outside of, an NAIA or Division II school giving you a football amount. But I can't tell you what the government's going to give you until December 31st.
And really, that's just the start of it, as you kind of pointed out. Like, we kind of have a ballpark. Now we got to process a bunch of stuff. So, yeah, that's been the constant thing. I mean, one of the last questions I have for you, like, football wise, like, getting away from the recruiting for a minute, because we could go circles about the terribleness of NIL, and
I got one kid from Florida. He wants me to flip him. I'm like, you committed to another school. Like, come on, coach. They pressured me. I can be flipped. And I'm like, I'm sorry, man. Like, that's not how I roll.
Yeah. Oh, God. Like I said, the pros and cons of this whole situation. Sweet God. Like I said, I get the NIL, and good for them making money, but it has just created a dumpster fire of recruiting, and it is what it is. So, but to be honest, since you've been at Ottawa, how has any of your, like, philosophy or viewpoint of offense and defense changed at all? Like, obviously, because football evolves every year. Some conferences go forward, some conferences return to old stuff. Like, I tweeted out yesterday, I was like, I just out of curiosity, who's running the flex bone still in college? And I think I got a list of like 12 schools, but then I've had like 3 or 4 others pop up that were on the triple option list. Because again, like, some people just go that way. Other schools have gone more spread. Other schools have, I've seen some schools in the I or more. You see people running a power T package. You see a lot of odd fronts and tight fronts, but people are getting out of the tight fronts because offenses figured that part out. Has any of your, like, schematic views changed, or have you had to make any major adjustments because maybe the direction of your conference, or just in football in general?
Yeah, I think my kind of philosophy has always been to be multiple, and whether that's offense or defense. Like, I coached our offensive line this season, and if you're just going to run inside zone, you may be able to beat an inferior opponent by doing it. And in a 50-50 game, if your players perform better, you got a chance. But if you're outnumbered and you're just going to run inside zone, I don't think it's going to be super successful. So, obviously, if you're running inside zone, then you need to run, a counter or an outside zone, or get the ball out on the perimeter. And I think defensively, I'm a huge man and 3-3-5 principle, but we've played 4 down fronts just as much as we have 3 down fronts, over the years, or gotten 5 down and 6 down. So I think you have to have a system regardless, unless you're my guy Terry Harrison at Friends, and they have a phenomenal system, and they do throw the football, but they are going to run the football out of the flex bone, and that's what they're going to do, and they're super successful. And a lot of people have trouble trying to stop it. We didn't this year. 2 years ago, we did a better chance, but they had a kid miss some field goals, and that's probably the outcome of the football game 2 years ago. But I think you got to be well diverse, and you got to be able to do everything. Even, Terry's going to throw the football when you've committed 11 guys to stopping the run. They'll still run it and they'll still get 6 yards, but they're going to have an explosive passing touchdown in the next, 10 plays, because he's a phenomenal football coach. So I think that's the big thing is you got to, as a good football coach, you got to be able to adapt to your conference, to your players. If we didn't have a tight end, like, I wouldn't be an 11 personnel team. We had 2 good tight ends. We were able to get in 11. We were able to get in 12, but we would change what we're doing if I didn't have a tight end, or if I didn't have a quarterback that could throw, we wouldn't be throwing, so I think that's the biggest thing, where that's kind of been my philosophy. And, things have changed. Like 5 years ago, I wouldn't have thought counter would have been our favorite play, this season. But it was, because we saw that we were the most successful on it. So let's figure out 7 more ways to run it, and have different motions, and a screen off of it. And, at the end of the day, if it's the players that are playing and something keeps popping up, you should probably keep doing it.
Okay. And then just because I like asking people this question, you may or may not have one. Do you have any? Because I know you're a big culture guy, and just kind of developing programs. And I've, for some reason, read over 40 books this year. Any book recommendations, or anything to kind of look at resource wise for culture, or just program development?
Yeah, I mean, I have a 30-minute commute to work, so huge podcast guy, whether it's actual football podcasts, or just phenomenal leaders across the board, of seeing what they do, whether they're CEOs or presidents or vice presidents, or people aspiring to be those positions. So big podcast guy in terms of that. Listen to all the football ones, but then try to venture off. John Gordon, he's a big positive energy guy. Mel Robbins is a big positive energy person. So those are people that I like to listen to. And then what I really like is when, like, John Gordon interviews some of the most successful people from other, professions. So I get a lot of that in my car. And then when I get home, it's time to spend with my wife and the kids, and really not a big reader, but I would listen to any book. And I spend an hour in my car a day, so I take full advantage of it. I don't jam out. I always try to get better, at least an hour a day.
Okay. Well, coaches, obviously give my man a follow on the Twitter. If you've not already. I mean, I don't even know how many Twitter followers you have at this point. 49,000 Twitter followers. So there you go. Like, again, if you were one of the few football coaches who've not followed Coach Davis, give him a follow.
Most of them are recruits trying to get offers. Trying to get that 46th NAIA football offer. So,
well, I can tell you, I clicked the followers section, and it's plenty long. So, give Coach a follow on the Twitter. Like, share, subscribe, all that little jazz. Check out our sponsor, Coachpad. Otherwise, that's another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast.